Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Community Keynotes today. My name is Melissa Majors. I'm so blessed to be the creator of the show. Joined with me is co-producer Amani Roberts. Hello, Amani.
Hello, Melissa. How are we doing today?
I am incredibly full of pride today, Amani Roberts. So the guest speaker, Lauren Neaves, like Leaves, she corrected me, Neaves, is a friend of mine. I've known her for a couple of years now. And I got to tell you, when I first met her, Amani, I knew there was something incredibly special about her. I didn't know what it was, but I knew she was bigger than her current situation. And getting to know Lauren over the last several years, I realize how courageous and brave she is. I mean, she's willing to be a voice for people who are reluctant to share their own voice due to the weight of other people's expectations. And I think that telling her story, honestly, it's part of the plan for her life. And I'm so excited and proud of her. And I'm excited for everyone to hear her story. So, without further ado, viewers, you are in for an absolute treat. Let's send her a word of encouragement using chat from wherever you're watching, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook. Help us welcome to the Community Keynote stage, Lauren Neaves.
Hi. So my name is Lauren, and I was born and raised in the DFW Metroplex of Texas. As you can see, I'm a pretty pale white girl with lots of freckles, strawberry blonde hair. And while I wasn't persecuted growing up because of what I looked like on the outside, I was really afraid that I would be if people knew the real me on the inside. See, I wasn't like everyone else growing up. First, I grew up Mormon, and there weren't a lot of us in my area. Growing up, I had a lot of conversations with friends who didn't believe that Mormons were Christians, and so they wanted to save me. And second, the thing that sets me apart from people is that I'm gay. So looking back, all the signs were there. While other girls' rooms were covered in pictures of boy bands and, teen heartthrobs, I had female athletes. Shannon Miller, Mia Hamm, Rebecca Lobo. As a Mormon kid, I didn't really have the vocabulary to verbalize what I thought about these women, that they were really hot. I could only say that I really admired them, which was true. They were out there killing it at what they did. In high school, I knew that I liked girls, but I was so afraid of it. So much so that as a senior in high school, I walked out of a creative writing class when our teacher used a clip from Will and Grace because it promoted the homosexual agenda. In reality, I was just really afraid that if I showed too much interest in this show, people would know my deep, dark secret. So funnily enough, it actually took going to the big Mormon college, Brigham Young University, to finally come out. So Brigham Young is located in Provo, Utah, which is about 40 miles south of Salt Lake. It was there that I finally started researching LGBTQ resources. So when I was there, I found the Utah Pride Center. And at the time, I was still young enough that I could go and participate in their youth center. And I'll never forget going for the first time. First, I'm pretty sure I drove past it 5 times because I was too scared to go inside. But when I finally did, I'll never forget that experience. It was full of teenagers, full of, anything you could want. There was a kitchen with tons of food. There were video games. There were computers. And everyone was just there hanging out, having a good time. And I walk in, and these girls come up and greet me, and they're like, "Hey, it's so nice to meet you. Are you gay or straight?" They're not judging, they're just curious. There were lots of straight kids who went to the center. It was just down the street from a high school, and it was a safe place that anyone could go to. So they just wanted to know where I fit in. So I kind of hesitated and said, I'm not really ready to answer that question right now. And they got me. It didn't faze them. They understood the point in my life that I was at, that I wasn't sure whether I could admit to it or not. It was the time in my life when I needed people who got that the most. So when I started BYU in 2005, a portion of the honor code read as follows: advocacy of a homosexual lifestyle, whether implied or explicit, or any behaviors that indicate homosexual conduct, including those not sexual in nature, are inappropriate and violate the honor code. So this meant that if you were a gay kid at BYU, you couldn't even admit out loud that you were gay without fear of getting kicked out of school. There were a few instances where friends of mine would get called into the honor code office. They'd hear something about this boy liking this other boy or something, that they were in a relationship. And so they would call friends in to verify this information. And we would not necessarily lie. I guess it was a lie. But we would try to save their academic standing. No, they're just friends. No, they're in the same class. They're just study buddies. And sometimes it was true, because it was a big gay witch hunt. It was at BYU that I started getting politically involved. I found groups like the Gender Equality Club and the BYU Democrats. One year when I was there, a group called Soul Force was doing a bus tour that they called the Equality Ride, where they visited a few religious institutions. BYU was one of those. At each of the institutions they went to, there was a lot of discrimination against the LGBTQ population. So the purpose of the bus ride wasn't to demand any change of policy at these institutions, but to bring about understanding of what it's like to be LGBTQ, to make people understand and realize that there's a lot of shame and suffering brought on by religious discrimination. So one day during this bus tour, a group of Soul Force riders and BYU students marched around the edge of campus, and we staged a die-in near the main entrance. So that meant we laid down on the ground and we placed lilies on our chest, representing the LGBTQ Mormons who had died by suicide. At that time, one of the most high-profile LGBTQ suicides was a man named Stuart Mattis. He was 32, and he committed suicide on the steps of a Mormon church. And his note rings true for many LGBTQ Mormons even today. The church has no idea that as I type this letter, there are surely boys and girls on their calloused knees imploring God to free them from this pain. They hate themselves. They retire to bed with their finger pointed to their head in the form of a gun. Every waking moment of every day, they must be on constant alert to not divulge any clues that will identify themselves to their peers. Was my glance at that boy too long? Does he think I'm gay? Will he now publicize my secret and beat me up? They are afraid of their parents. They are afraid of their bishop. They are afraid of their friends. They have nowhere to go but lay on the floor, curled in a ball, and weep themselves to sleep. So one night during the Equality Ride, we had a rally of both BYU students and the Equality Riders. And a friend of mine shared the story that he had come out to his mother, and then not long after, he was in a really terrible car wreck, nearly fatal. And he spent months in rehab afterward. He said that during his recovery, his mom told him that it would have been better if he had died in the accident than live openly as a gay man. And that was a very common theme. My mother once said to me many years before I came out that if she had a gay kid, she'd kill herself. And while she doesn't remember making that comment, it did push me further back into the closet. Now let me step aside for a moment and say, my mother is not the villain of my story, not even close. In many ways, since coming out, she has grown so much. She is nothing but supportive and is one of my biggest advocates. So going back to BYU, these instances made me realize that I needed to be a voice for the LGBTQ community. I needed to share my voice and experiences of being an LGBTQ Mormon. So I like to think that the rally and my friends and everything at least made some small difference to BYU, because in 2007, the honor code was updated to read, Brigham Young University will respond to homosexual behavior rather than to feelings or orientation, and welcomes as full members of the university community all whose behaviors meet university standards. One stated sexual orientation is not an honor code issue. So for a moment, it felt like my friends and I could breathe. We could finally say I'm gay out loud without fear of losing our academic standing. We still weren't allowed to date or act on our homosexual feelings, but being able to admit who you are to your friends is such a huge weight off of your shoulders. I started slowly coming out to friends. I told my roommates my last year of BYU, and they were nothing but kind and accepting. And then California Proposition 8 happened. So Prop 8 was a California ballot proposition and state constitutional amendment against same-sex marriage. So the Mormon Church publicly supported and funded Prop 8. They set up door-to-door canvassing within California to encourage people to vote for Prop 8. So just when it was starting to feel that being gay at BYU was getting easier, all these letters to the editor started flowing into our university newspaper. I read letters where people compared being gay to being a rapist and a murderer. There were tables all over campus encouraging people from California to go and vote for this proposition. I even heard multiple times that guys said if they had a gay roommate, they'd beat his face in. People celebrated when Prop 8 passed. They said that, marriage equality had won. I was heartbroken. I came to realize that the LDS Church wouldn't ever fully embrace someone like me. So some friends and I drove up to Salt Lake, and we went to the anti-Prop 8 rally, and we marched around Temple Square. We had signs that said, "Pulpit politics," and "We didn't vote on your marriage." It was such a powerful experience to not only just be around other gay Mormons, but also straight allies, realizing that this was bigger than I had any idea that it was. And so even though we felt like we may have lost that battle, we were becoming more vocal, and we were rallying together and fighting for what we believed in. So I started finding my voice, and I started coming out to more and more people. My good friends took it in stride. It was just another part of who I was. They didn't see this as my defining characteristic. To them, I was still the same person who's going to make really stupid puns. I'm going to continue quoting Gilmore Girls to you. I was going to continue singing show tunes and probably pretty loudly at you. Nothing about who I changed fundamentally, or nothing about who I was fundamentally changed. The only thing that changed was how people perceived me after I came out. There were those who, when I came out, stopped talking to me. People that I'd known for years actively started avoiding me. I heard from other friends that some people started saying terrible things about me behind my back. And for what? Because a piece of information they didn't previously know was now out there? I had a few female friends who told me that they were afraid that this meant that I was interested in them, that my coming out to them just showed that, I was trying to flirt with them. But I asked them, are they automatically attracted to every man they see? No, that's not the case, they told me. So why did they assume that just because I like women meant that I was automatically attracted to them? Have I ever done anything to make them uncomfortable? No. They were my friends. Same rules applied. Plus, they were flattering themselves. I have standards. So now I'm 35. I started coming out to my best friend and other people when I was 19. And a lot has changed in the last 16 years. But who I am fundamentally has not. That's why it still surprises me when I lose friends over it. That in 2020, people still choose to no longer associate with me when they learn that I'm gay. But I've come to realize that that probably won't end, at least not anytime soon. Because coming out is a never-ending process. Every time you meet someone new, you have to weigh, is it safe or unsafe to come out to that person? Is it worth it? Do they need to know? It's only within this last, few months that the Supreme Court decided that you can't be fired for being gay. When I was younger and I didn't have the vocabulary or the courage to stand up for myself, I turned to my allies, and typically they were straight because I didn't know that many LGBTQ individuals. So allies are incredibly important to have. We all need people who we can depend on, who we know will accept us for us. When we feel like we don't have a space or we're not seen, an ally can make all the difference. Kindness and truly seeing someone goes a lot further than you think it does, and that effect is larger than people can imagine. It's easy to feel like no one gets you, but just one ally showing up and being invested in you and your happiness can change things. So I love it when people ask, what can I do to help? Allies multiply in number. Just simply by existing and standing up for minority communities, others are encouraged to open their minds and be accepting as well. It's like a domino effect. But now I can and will speak up for myself. My voices and experiences don't need to be filtered through straight individuals. I've seen a lot of interviews where they interview a person because they have a LGBTQ son or daughter or cousin or in-law. Ask the son, ask the daughter, ask the cousin, ask the in-law, ask the LGBTQ person. Because as much as you love me and see me, my experience isn't your experience, and no one can tell my story like I can. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm very proud of where I've come from and how far I've grown, and still realizing that there's more to grow and more to do. And learning that the journey may be hard, but it's worth it. If you're scared of coming out, there are so many resources at your fingertips. Um, I'm doing this for Affirmation, the LGBTQ Mormon group. And I mean, if you're Mormon, they are a great resource. And even if it sucks in the beginning, coming out is so incredibly worth it.
I am so proud of you, Lauren. Wonderful job. This telling your story the way that you just did just further demonstrates your commitment to stand flat-footed and say what needs to be said. And I think today you have opened lots of hearts and minds. And I'm just overjoyed and so proud of you. Thank you so much. We'll come back and ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned affirmation. So today, on every Community Keynotes episode, we raise money for a charity of the speaker's choice. And Lauren has chosen Affirmation. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Affirmation is a nonprofit organization working to connect, uplift, and empower lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Mormons and their allies around the world from all across the spectrums of sexual orientation, gender identity, faith, and involvement with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So today we will do a fundraiser. And Amani, if you could pull up the gift slide, I want to show people how they can give. Every penny counts. So please, 60% of your contributions will go directly to Affirmation, and the remaining 40 will go to fund the production of Community Keynotes. There's 3 really easy ways that you can give. You can text your donation to the number you see on the screen. You could simply scan the QR code that you see there, or you can click and go to givebutter.com/community keynotes. So that's one way that you can give, but Lauren has inspired us so much. We've also created a collection of really cool merchandise so you can wear her story in your heart and across your heart as well. So here's just a couple samples of some of the merchandise that you can purchase on storystore.us, and 10% of those proceeds will benefit Affirmation. So please visit storystore.us and grab your personal piece of Lauren's story. And with that, I would like to invite back the whole crew, Julie, Lauren's sister, Amani, and Lauren. Hello, welcome back, everyone. We can't hear you there, Amani.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're happy to be here. Phenomenal job, Lauren. I have some questions to ask you and your sister. We'll kind of get to them because I'm excited to hear your answers. I wanted to first ask, I love to ask this question last, but I'll ask it first. If you had a chance to talk to 18-year-old Lauren, what would you say to her based on what you know now?
Just that it's worth it. That I didn't know that it was worth it. I didn't know how much better it could get. I wouldn't change anything. Like, I wouldn't change going to BYU. I would still probably do that. I met some of the best people at BYU. And I am who I am because of the experiences that I had. Just knowing, if I'd known how hard it was going to be, I might have chickened out. But realizing just how worth it is, that's what I would want 18-year-old Lauren to know.
Very good. My follow-up question to that is, if you were to meet someone who was at a point in life where they felt they could not go on with life because of no family or friend support after they came out, what would you say to them?
I mean, I have met some of those people, and unfortunately, I've lost some of those people. I know a good number of not just Mormon people, but LGBTQ individuals of many different religious backgrounds who I actually dated one who came out to her parents and they did not take it well, and she ended her life. And, it was hard. And I understand to some degree just how hard that is. I was terrified of telling my parents. My parents were the absolute last people that I came out to because of how afraid I was. So I built up this community behind me that if my parents said, no, we don't want anything to do with you anymore, I had everyone else to fall back on. And I know that I lucked out because my parents are my biggest supporters, along with my sisters. But if you don't have that immediate family support, there are groups like Affirmation that you can find. And I know that they exist across other faith-based backgrounds as well, but you can find your own group. You can create your own family. You don't always have the family that you were born into, but you can have your chosen family. And there are people who have experienced it and have come out and can be there for you.
Excellent. So my next question is for Julie, our sister here. So Julie, what do you admire the most about Lauren? Oh, let's see here. Hold on, you're muted. Here, so you have to unmute yourself, Julie, and then we can hear what you say. There you go. Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Her willingness to be a light, to show a path to others that they can follow.
Awesome. Great.
And I think she's done that today. I'm sorry, Monty, got to jump in. She has created that path for people today. So I think I'm just as proud as you are, Sister Julie. Well done, Lauren.
Yes. Lauren, what is your definition of courage?
Continuing even when it's hard. That I can't tell you how many times I fell down in the process, or found unhealthy outlets. I didn't mention this in my story, but I'm a year and a half sober, and I know that in some ways trying to fit in my own community led me down that path of using alcohol incorrectly. But I kept going, and I'm here, and I kept trying, and I have realized that I've made a lot of mistakes, but I wouldn't be who I am now without those.
So you mentioned kind of several different types of, we'll call them valleys that you've experienced in life. We have the peaks, we have the valleys. How have you been able to consistently bounce back and get through those valleys? Because that's very difficult for some people.
In this way, I know that I lucked out. I know that I lucked out because I do have such a supportive family that, my mother is one of my biggest supporters. My sisters are my biggest supporters. That when I feel like I can't do something, I have those people behind me to kind of pull me up if I can't pull myself up. And I am lucky. I am one of the lucky ones because I do know lots of people who their families, kicked them out and wanted nothing to do with them. And I am incredibly grateful that didn't happen. And I'm grateful that my sister's here today because I don't know what I would do without my sisters and my family.
Yeah. So speaking of your sister, I want to ask Julie again, how have you been able to stay with your sister throughout her entire journey? Because I know it's been difficult. What have you been able to do to stay with her through the thick and the thin?
You mentioned it being difficult. To me, it's not difficult. She's my sister. I love her. She used to ask me before she was brave enough to come out to me if there was anything that she could do that would make me not love her. And I told her no. I have 3 children. I said, if you hurt my children, we're going to have a problem. But other than that, there's really nothing that you can do that would make me not love you. Mm-hmm. And so just that, she's my sister. I love her. She is supportive. She is a fabulous aunt to my kids. She's funny. We joke that when we're around each other, we start sharing a brain. She's still the same person. And so none of that changed for me.
What advice would you have for other siblings like yourself who might be having difficulty handling it or working with a fellow sibling who has come out?
I think just realize that they are still the same person that you have always known. Look to see the consistency, see that, there's still someone that you can depend on that loves you. And Lauren kind of mentioned it in her presentation that it's just one more facet about their life. And feel privileged that they are willing to share that with you, and try to understand how hard that might be for them.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing. So Lauren, I want to close off by asking you to share with us some additional work you're doing for the Affirmation Conference. It's very cool and interesting. So share some of what you're doing for that conference.
Yeah, so they're doing a conference. It's a virtual conference. It'll be, I think, middle of this month, and I think it takes place over multiple weekends since it can't be in person. But I was asked to sing for the conference, so I'm putting together a nice little video from one of my favorite musicals. And I got some of my friends to assist with this, and I'm really excited about how it's going to turn out.
We're excited too. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Melissa, who will take us home from today's show.
All right. Again, Lauren, thank you so much for sharing your story today. I'm so proud of you. I'm honored to be your friend, and I'm so happy that you were able to brave being vulnerable and share your story. As I mentioned earlier, I know your story is going to open hearts and minds. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you
with
for
that,
having me.
Amani, I just wanted to bring just the two of us on stage to talk a little bit about and reflect on season 1 of Community Keynotes. This is our season finale, the last
Yes.
episode for us. How are you feeling about everything?
I feel great. I feel very proud of just the work that we've done to put on these episodes. I think that the growth we've seen in all of our speakers has been tremendous. So that's a credit to you and your skill for working with them. And I'm just excited about season 2. I think that what we've learned along the process has been tremendous. And I'm just very proud and touched by each person's story. How do you feel? What are your reflections based on when we started to when we are today?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect really, but I just felt like there was a purpose. We could not squander the pause that we have right now. You know, so many of our businesses and things slowed down, but in meeting with you and putting our minds together and saying we don't need to squander this, there are still some stories that need to be shared that can help heal the world right now. And gosh, I just feel so proud. I'm so honored that we were able to create a platform to allow just everyday people to share their stories that's really making a difference in the lives of others. And so it's been a tremendous experience, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work for Yamani. This would not be as great without you, for sure. Would not be possible.
Yes.
And given that, we got a season 2 coming up. We're
Yes.
going to do it again.
Yes, we are. So here we are.
So check this out. We are looking for everyday people who have stories that will inspire greatness in others. The application process is open, but it will only be open until September 25th. And so if you have a story, you're not a professional speaker, but you have a story that you'd like to share, we encourage you to apply at communitykeynotes.com. Here's the process. You'll go through about 4 to 6 weeks of coaching with me to get ready for your moment. And then you will share your story with the world on our platform. And we would be delighted and thrilled to hear from you if you're interested. If you have any questions before you apply, just email us at hello@communitykeynotes.com, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So until then, be well, my friends, and we'll see you in season 2.
Yes.